Monkey.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Is that a monkey?
Where are the gorillas?
Nice monkey suit.
The help of this chimp, we may have a championship season.
Monkey!
It's like I'm talking to a monkey.
No one wants to be turned into a monkey. Apes together.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinemonkey, a monkey movie podcast. We talk all things monkeys in media, sapiens in cinema, and it's October, the spookiest time of the year. It's our 13th episode. Let's talk about a spooky one. And today, I am joined by a friend of the show. He's been on it already, but he's our first guest back. It's Juan Ramon.
Hey guys, glad to be back. Thanks for having me back, Mike. Very excited about this one in particular we've been talking about. But yeah, this one has all the monkey in it from beginning
All
to
the
end.
monkey. That's so true. Yeah, well, because I remember when I asked you to do whichever Planet of the Apes I asked you to watch, and you were like, "Well, I really wanted to do Nope," and I was like, "We'll get to it in October," and it's October now, so we're going to talk about the movie Nope. Just up top here, full spoilers for the movie. Going into this, I'm just going to read the credits real quick. So Nope was written and directed by, and produced by Jordan Peele, which was produced by his company Monkey Paw Productions. Maybe we'll get into some other ones. I don't know if I could finagle that, but Monkey is in the title of his production company. So that's kind of fun. So the movie stars Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, Stephen Yeun, Michael Wincott, Brandon Pereira, and Keith David. And it was, everything else was... It had a budget of $68 million, made a total of $172 at the box office. And so I guess we'll jump into the plot here. The movie opens with a TV set, and we hear the rampage see the aftermath of a particular rampage of our good monkey friend. His name is Gordy, and Gordy has seemingly committed some sort of massacre on this television set, and you're like, well, that's weird. What's this have to do with the movie? And then we just cut away real quick back to the opening credits, and you see this big kind of box over, the names are like appearing over this like box. You're like, well, what could this be? This is an interesting image. Maybe we'll get back to that later. Maybe that's important for some reason. And then we meet Daniel Kaluuya's character. His name is OJ, and OJ is a horse trainer. And we see Keith David, right? Keith David is his father, and they're training a particular horse for some movie that they're probably working on. And Keith David gives Daniel Kaluuya a nice speech about keeping our head out of the clouds. We're doing it. We're getting back into the business. We're making it. And then all of a sudden, things start raining down from the sky. Coins, keys, weird pieces of metal. And Keith David is struck in the face, I believe in the eye, by one of these pieces with a quarter, I think. Yeah, because Daniel Kaluuya takes him to the hospital, and they're like, well, he's dead. And I was like, it's not a lot of Keith David in this movie here.
No. I remember when this came out, there were a lot of people who were saying that the reason Keith David wasn't here was because if he was in the movie alongside Michael Wincott, who plays, we'll talk about him later, Antlers, the cinematographer, who also has like a grumpy voice, like it would have been too powerful a movie if we had two very super chill talking guys in the movie.
Yeah, deep, intense voices, just going back and forth at each other.
Keith David's really good.
Yeah, he's excellent. He's excellent in everything he does.
Yeah.
And I just remember like not knowing he was in this movie when I first saw it. And then I was like, he's in this opening scene, and then you're like, wow, that's crazy. And then when he was dead, and I was like, but he had the "and" credit. that's like a big deal. That's like more like a glorified cameo. But so Keith David's dead, and OJ has to go on keeping the business alive. It cuts to like 6 or 7 months later, and we see OJ on a film set, and he's got his horse. I believe it's Lucky is the name of the horse.
Yeah.
You could see he's kind of uncomfortable. This isn't his thing. He's good with animals, but he's terrible with people. And they're going up to him. They're like, "Oh, can you give us the safety spiel?" And he's just like mumbling his way through it. And then all of a sudden, his sister, played by Keke Palmer, her name is Emerald, she comes in and gives this razzle-dazzle speech about how her family was the family who they were the first black jockeys to be photographed. The first moving image is an image of a horse galloping, and jockey that was riding it is her great 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 grandfather, and kind of tries to put on this razzle dazzle. No one seems to care on this film set. They probably have heard these safety spiels like 100 times, and it shows because they're not really super paying attention. And she's trying to promote all her side businesses. She's like, I sing, I dance, I act, I can sew, I ride motorcycles. And everyone's like, we don't care. Like, just move on. And they're like, all right, let's start shooting the scene. And Daniel Kaluuya's like, wait, like we should probably take a break. The horse is a little agitated. And they're like, no, it's okay. We'll do it real quick. And they put this like spherical reflector in front of the horse's eye, and the horse freaks out. And they basically fire them. They're like, well, the horse is dangerous, so get it out of here. And he was like, well, you didn't listen to me. And maybe lucky isn't so lucky after all. And Daniel Kaluuya is not really happy with how they've been treated. And they're like, well, we'll try to make money some other way. And he takes his sister M with him, and they go on driving back home. And you see vast California countryside as they drive deeper and deeper into the deep mountains, places I've not dare ventured here in Los Angeles County.
Apparently they're in where exactly are they? Apparently they mentioned like the exact location in which this house is kind of based in, but
Agua Dulce.
Agua Dulce. I think that's real. I'm definitely California native, and I don't think I've ventured out that
on
far.
Wikipedia. It gives me a location. Imagine, if you will, rocks and dirt and mountain. And that's what this location is. It's just kind of the middle of nowhere, and they have a ranch there. And their next door neighbor is this kind of mini amusement park, kind of like recreation of this old west town, and it's run by Stephen Yeun's character. His name is Ricky Jupe Park, and OJ sells Lucky to Jupe because they need money in some capacity. They haven't been able to kind of stay afloat with their Hollywood horses business. And he's like, well, I'm gonna sell it to Jupe, and then I'll find a way to buy the horses back. Meanwhile, when they're taken up to Jupe's office in this old west town, which I guess we should kind of describe here, because the old west town, it has all these like little weird attractions. The big thing is like this winking well where you can put a quarter in, and then it'll take your picture while you're looking in through the like top of the well. Yeah. And then there's, mining for gold and all these other stereotypical like Wild West town experiences. And they clearly have some sort of show in the background, like a rodeo kind of experience. And I love this because this is at the very end of the movie. I don't know if you watched it entirely through the credits, but there's a not necessarily a post-credit scene, but there's like just a frame, and it's like, come visit Jupiter's Claim at Universal Studios Hollywood. If you have taken the Universal Studios tour, you drive through this particular set from Nope, and there's a line that Jordan Peele says on the tour, which it always cracks me up because it's not something people like say. He's like, because this whole town is based off of this show, this fictional show that Stephen Yeun's character was in called Kid Sheriff. And he was like, do you remember that show, Kid Sheriff? No? Well, I do. And I'm like, Jordan Peele, what line reading is that? That feels really like explain that. If no one has seen your movie, they're going to be so confused as to like what you're talking about. Jordan. Right. Jordan. that whole section. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that whole section of the Universal Studios tour is just like, it's cool you're driving through like a set from a movie you've seen recently, but this is a weird tangent to have at the start of this podcast. If you haven't seen the movie, it does a terrible job of like advertising your movie. It's just like, well, this is a town and weird things happen here. And then you just hear some noises and all the power turns off for a second. You're like, I got nothing out of this.
That was my thought when I saw that, because I actually just like going through the credits and skimmed through it because I'd forgotten if there was anything else. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, first, this is probably going to age pretty weirdly years if eventually this side of Universal Studios won't be there anymore. But I think it's very funny just because it's thematically there. But you're right. When I thought about it, I was like, if I hadn't really seen this movie going into the attraction, it kind of realized, oh shit, there's not really much that goes on in the tour when you go through that. Like when you just see the power going out, it's supposed to be very scary. And it's like, if you've seen the movie, it's like, oh shit, like you kind of expect what's going to happen or kind of get an idea. But you're just going in, you're just like, okay, cool. You just drop the lights, I guess. But I don't know why the here in the first place.
Why did we park for 20 seconds and then keep moving? I don't know.
Yeah. And then the fact is, I think it looks better at night too. Because if it's during the day, you have like neon lights turned by the Star Lasso experience that's like all torn apart. It looks better at night, but at day it just doesn't even look any better at least. Yeah, but it was really weird looking at it because I was all like, it almost kind of felt very in tune with the movie, but at the same time I was like, dude, imagine like 10 years from now when this side of the lot's going to get expanded with something else and it's gone. It's like, you're still going to have that there maybe. Or redo a
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly, like, I would say this movie is still semi-relevant today. I mean, it only came out in 2022. Mm-hmm. It's not like the most talked about film. You know, it was a big hit, especially for like an R-rated horror film made by, you know, one of the most prolific directors today. Of his movies, I feel like it's the one that people don't talk about that much. I feel like it's his like I feel Get Out, people are still talking about Get Out today. And Us, people kind of talk about Us, I think. But then Nope is just kind of like, oh yeah, that came out. That happened. He made that one.
I noticed, weirdly enough, as I was like just in case I need to refresh my memory, you know, you'd always want to go to Wikipedia to find out, just to kind of refresh your memory. That's the best place to do that. But I like looked up on Google, and I think the Google reviews have it at 2.8 stars out of 5 for like regular people who had seen the movie. So I was like, okay, so
that's kind of crazy.
It is, and personally, that Nope is my favorite out of the 3 movies that he's done. But I think that one of the biggest reasons why it doesn't get talked about is because I think that there's still a lot of ambiguity with the themes and specific things that happen that I think are not as clear as day, or not as maybe relatable as maybe Get Out or Us are, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I would say those are more personal stories. And this is billed as a horror movie. And I think it starts kind of like a horror movie. But then as the movie goes on and you're like, oh, that's what this is, it becomes kind of an action film. Like, yeah. It's just at a certain point, and I would say probably about maybe the halfway mark or like 2/3 into this movie. And we'll get to that point. We'll talk about it. But that's what it like, there's like a really scary thing that happens, like a really upsetting, disturbing thing that happens. And then once that's done, there's no more horror in the movie. It's just like, okay, let's take this thing down. And then like, it's not scary anymore. And even the music changes. Like the music goes from like kind of like tense and scary to like big Western action feel, which is cool. Yeah, but I think maybe that's why people maybe went into this thinking that this was going to be a full horror movie all the way through. And then it just isn't. It just doesn't. But I think that's a good thing because it kind of switches genres at a certain point.
Just really fast, I like to compare this movie to Jaws in that I think
absolutely
2/3 of that movie is definitely very horror based. You have very interesting deaths and kills in there that are just like, okay, this strikes a particular fear in the character, like in this case Bruce the Shark compared to here and what Jean Jacket eventually has on name. But yeah, like you hit that point in Jaws where it just becomes like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and try to kill this thing. It becomes a whole kind of like a horror action set piece, and then same thing here. It has the same vibes. But yeah,
this is Jaws in the sky. This is Sky Jaws.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, I was like hearing the score, and like, there's at least a little, not exact cue, but it's kind of paced very similar to Jaws, where you have the dun dun part of it, where it's like
Mhm.
you kind of get that same rhythm. So I'm like, okay, if you were looking for a really up to date Jaws movie, like this is it. It's a lot of fun after like the horror aspect is done.
Absolutely. I mean, like Jordan Peele has stated that Jaws was one of his inspirations for the movie, as well as King Kong, Jurassic Park, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Signs, and The Wizard of Oz. I get some of those more than others, but Wizard of Oz is like, I'm not quite sure where you're going with this, but sure.
Yeah. No kidding. Maybe the flying monkeys. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
More monkeys. More monkeys about
more-
King Kong. You got Wizard of Oz.
That's true. That's true. So back to the movie. OJ goes up the stairs to Jupe's office to sell Lucky, the horse. And Keke Palmer joins him. And he's just like, you're going to screw up the deal. And she's just like, no, it's fine. I'll be fine. And he goes in and he starts his negotiation with Jupe and is like, hey, like, you know, can I buy the horse back? And he's just like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll figure something out. And meanwhile, Keke Palmer's like looking around Jupe's office and she notices all this like memorabilia from this TV show called Gordy's Home, which was the show that we saw at the start of the movie, where the chimpanzee kind of went crazy and there was a massacre. And Jupe kind of switches focus from selling the horse to like, hey, let me tell you a little bit about that show. Like, you know, it had 2 seasons. We had a bit of a cult following. And, you know, we had this birthday episode where, you know, Gordy just went crazy. One of the chimp actors, you know, went wild and there was an incident. And let me tell you, this to me was like the most upsetting part of this movie when there's just like it's a monologue from Stephen Yeun and it's a slow zoom in on his face. And he's like, and let me tell you, they did such a fantastic job on SNL. It was the 90s and they killed it. Like you had all these SNL stars and then Chris Kattan played Gordy. And let me tell you, he killed it. Anytime we mentioned the jungle, he was going crazy. It's so funny. And you could just see that like he's saying this because this is a story he's clearly told hundreds of times at this point because he's had to live through it. And he seems to be the only like full survivor that was like unscathed by this attack. Yeah. And you just kind of see like he's telling it and he's like trying to spin it in like a fun way. Like, isn't that crazy? Like there was a monkey attack on this TV show, but there's kind of like this kind of like deadness behind his eyes. That's just like, haha, Chris Kattan, right? Wild. He did that. And also like wild that we like shot the show. I'm clearly fine. Well-adjusted individual here. No issues at all from
no
me.
Signs of strong PTSD. Like he looks like he was a breakdown at any moment. And I like that performance just because it kind of cuts. So I kind of skimmed through this real fast, but the reason why Gordy goes ape literally is because of a balloon that pops. Yeah. You hear it also in the intro. You hear the pop before all the mayhem is kind of implied and you hear it. But yeah, I mean, when M tells Jupe is like what actually happened is when that he starts like he kind of pauses and you would think he'd describe it. This is his own firsthand experience, but he just goes straight to the SNL skit to try to like put a barrier between him and the actual memory, just to be like, if you really want to know, they did it like pretty much spot on. Like, and it's on the first of the movie we'll talk about later is just that sense of entertainment for a very serious moment. It's like you're exploiting that in a certain way that is like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's exploiting that very horrifying incident and using that just for, I guess, his own benefit because he's just like, again, super traumatized. He can't bother explaining it. So like, just go watch the SNL video on YouTube. But like right as he's about to explain like the moment that he kind of locked eyes with Gordy, or like as soon as he like I think he might have like mauled. We'll probably see her later. Mauled one of the actresses of the movie. Like he stops. He like kind of like immediately stops, kind of clasps his hand together, and then he's all like, "Yeah, anyways, just go watch the video. Like it's good." Like that's when you realize he was gonna probably break down at that second.
Yeah. But like you were saying, he also profits off of this tragedy because he mentions, like, he has the secret room in his office that has all this like memorabilia he's collected from the show. Like the movie kind of opens with Gordy attacking one of his co-stars, and you see this shoe that's standing like directly straight up, like covered in, like, has like spots of blood on it, and it's supposed to represent like this bad miracle. I think I read it's just like it's insane that happened. That's crazy. But this miracle happened because of a terrible, terrible thing. And this happens apparently all the time in everyday life, where like a terrible thing will happen, but like also some extraordinary event will happen to the side. And he's profiting off of the harm, his PTSD and the tragedy of this film set, just because it captured a particular spectacle. And that's kind of what this movie is all about. And we'll talk about it more as we go on, but it's all about trying to capture the spectacle. And that's even what Jordan Peele did when making this movie. But again, we'll talk about that later. But so they sell Lucky to Jupe, and they wind up going home, and they, are having a night in. They're kind of bonding, brother and sister, trying to be like, how do we save the farm? M doesn't really seem to care all so much. She's just like, hey, like, I got my side stuff. That's actually going to be fine. I don't really care. Like, and OJ is just like, well, I'll just, I got to wake up early in the morning anyway and feed all these animals that I take care of. And then all of a sudden the power goes out, and one of their horses, I think its name is Clover. This movie's also kind of broken up into different acts where we kind of follow one particular animal at that particular time. So I think this is the Clover section of the movie, where this horse kind of goes out into the fields, and OJ is like, oh, okay, let me go get him back. And he starts to kind of chase after it, and he notices something is wrong, kind of like the day that his father died. He's just, something's not right here. The horse is acting really strange. And I forgot the reason why, but they kind of, does Clover die? Does Clover get eaten at this point?
I think
I forget
Clover
what happens to Clover.
Yeah, I think Clover does get eaten. Is this also around the same time where, I think it's around the same time where OJ notices that, because they could see what's it called? Oh, I forgot the name of the actual ranch that the park,
the Jupiter's Claim.
Jupiter's Claim. Yeah, they could see the stadium that he has in that park. I think it's in that same night that he notices the lights are on and they turn off. Like, he hears these noises going on, but I think Clover does die. I could double check just to make sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they kind of see that, like, Jupe is kind of like practicing something in the background, and like the lights go on, and all of a sudden everything goes off, and then you kind of hear this like weird clicking noise, kind of like the Predator. It's like a weird predator-ish kind of like clicking noise, and I was like gonna do it, and I was like, that's not gonna come out well. And and then like they come to the conclusion that there is something strange happening in this valley. And you know what? It might be a UFO.
Yeah, because I think OJ, he kind of like, there's a point where I think he kind of hears a horse like neighing, right? Obviously, like screaming, I guess, for lack of a better term, but you could hear it kind of circling around above him. And as he's like looking, kind of trying to find where it's going, he just like really, for a brief moment, he notices like the shape of a flying saucer pass by in like a second. And that's our first glimpse into this UFO. And he kind of holds on to it, but then later on when he talks to M, he just brings up that idea that you just mentioned, the term, which is a bad miracle. Like, you've seen something that's really not supposed to be there. It's otherworldly, but like it doesn't seem like that's a good sign. Yeah,
it's like that's definitely not that's not helpful to me.
That's not beneficial to us. Later on.
So they're like, okay, well, we can make a lot of money if we capture this on film. If we take a picture of this or a video of some capacity. So they wind up going to this store
Fry's
called
Electronics.
Fry's Electronics, which I didn't know this, but was a real electronics store in California. And it actually closed down as they were making this movie. Yeah, and Jordan Peele was just such a big fan of the place that the owner was like, "Well, for Jordan, I'll keep this one location open until we finish filming." And so they actually go into the store, and it's funny because the store itself has a UFO crashed into the front of the store, and they go through and they're buying all this equipment that they can't really afford, but they're like, we'll figure it out, it'll be fine. And they run into Angel, who is like, hey, like, I'll check you out, but like, do you want us to install it? And they're being like real coy about it. Like, no, we'll figure it out ourselves. And Angel's like, are you sure? Because it's like really complicated, like security system. And they're like, yeah, all right, you're gonna do it for free? And he's like, yeah, it's included in your thing. And Angel's kind of like this down on his luck kind of guy. He winds up going to the farm to start setting up the cameras, and he's just like a guy who's just his girlfriend just broke up with him. He's kind of depressed. He's got nothing really going on in his life, and I forget how he figures it out, but he just kind of has conversations with them, and he's like, there's like UFO sightings in this area, like kind of joking around, and they're like, haha, yeah, all right. And then he's like, are you actually trying to like find a UFO? And they're like, yeah, all right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we are actually. Get off our property. And he was like, I can help you out. I got not much going on. And they're like, no, please leave. And he's like, okay, sure. And he winds up getting out of here. And it actually, this is one of my favorite like lines in the movie, because Jordan Peele's movies, like they're horror movies, but they're also funny. They're like, there's great jokes sprinkled throughout. And he's just like, hey, like, my supervisor's going to call you. And they're like, 5 stars, Angel. Don't you worry about it. And then he's like, all right, sweet, great, thanks. And he like gets in his car, his van, and he starts driving away. And then like later that night, he's working at Fry's, and he is spying on them, on their security system that he just set up. And he's just kind of watching and kind of like trying to be secretive. And there's a jump scare that happens where it's such a lame jump scare too, but it's for fun, where his coworker just appears behind him, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's just like, nothing, not doing anything at all, just watching this feed. And she's like, cool. And like she just like won't leave him alone, and he's just trying to get her to go away. Just meanwhile, go ahead.
This is something that I think he mentioned before I guess he went back to Fry's, was I guess he was like installing it, and he's with OJ, and OJ just like is telling him, he's like, okay, if you like put your camera, like, well, Angel's telling him, you put your cameras out like at a certain distance, you're able to see like the whole field. But OJ's like, no, just lift the camera higher, like aim it higher. And he's like, all right, cool. And he's like up to the horizon. He's like, nope, higher. That just kind of helps into Angel more and be like, okay, this is not just your regular security camera. Like they're scanning for something. But I think he mentions that because they kind of told him they want to make sure that the cameras don't go out of power. He kind of also drops the idea like their phones have been dropping out of power. He's like, that doesn't happen. That's not real. He's like, well, just in case, because I guess this UFO is basically like a Roman EMP bomb or mine that just kind of like completely turns off all power for like all vehicles, all cars, all electronics. So eventually you can't record anything. So Angel basically tells them like, oh, so all the cameras are pretty much linked up, but one camera, I believe he might have mentioned, is like linked up to not lose power regardless, like a backup power just in case.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one that they're eventually using to try to grab an image of this UFO. But I believe later on when they're like, he's spying on them, he calls M and says, it's almost like a jump scare too. He's like, I just want to let you know there's a bug on your camera. It was like this praying mantis right in front of it the entire time.
Yeah, and he's just like, get the praying mantis off. And she's like, there's not much I can do about that.
Yeah.
I also, while Angel is setting up the cameras, M like goes on a little side adventure. You don't see it, but she comes back with this kind of metal horse that she's stolen from Jupiter's Claim. and there's this fun little kind of standoff where everyone's really far away from each other. Like she takes the metal horse and puts it down on the ground, and Jupe comes to the edge of the property in his car, and he's like, "What do you got there?" And they're like, "Metal horse for training." And he's just like, "We have some of those. That's kind of that. Where'd you?" And then Kiki Palmer's like, "Where do you get yours?" And he was like, "I actually don't know. I have no idea." And it's just like this. Yeah, it's just this fun little standoff between them where it's like he knows that they stole it, but he's just like, I don't know what. It's fine, sure, I guess. And he's just like, you guys should come to like this event I'm having tomorrow night. And they're like, nah, all right, bye. And then he just drives away.
I love the delivery of Steven Yeun when he's like, he tries to show them the flyer for the Star Lasso experience, but like flies away from his hand. He's all like, all right, well, whatever. And he's explaining to them, but when they're like, no, we're not going to show up anymore. Well, he just leaves from like a distance. You just hear him like, he kind of like says it twice, like thumbs up.
Yeah. He's like, I got two thumbs up. and then gets in his car and goes away. He's really good. He's great in everything he does. I don't know. He's so good at playing just like the nice guy, even though maybe, I don't know. He's not super sinister in this. He's just kind of, some people I think try to paint him out to be like the villain of the movie, but like he's not really a villain. He's just kind of dumb. He's just kind of, which we'll get to later. But like, yeah, he's just kind of like, he's a guy who just he's trying to make his way and he's trying to profit in any way he possibly can. So that night,
for that tragedy and Jupiter's claim, he would have been completely like a washed away actor. Without that, like if he loses any one of those things, that's really it. That's how close he is to it. So you can tell like how much work he's invested into it. So it's kind of regardless, like he's not as super huge or famous as he thinks he is. So like he kind of tries to act that way. He's always charm, and it's always very funny to see him being super awkward.
Yeah, like he's at best a C-list celebrity in this world, and like his park is not popular in any capacity. Like there's not a lot of people there. Every time they show it, it's just like 20 or so people. And to be fair, it is in the middle of nowhere, California. It's just, but like, he made a whole theme park based off of this TV show from the 90s that even in the world of the show, of the movie, people don't seem to know or care about too much. They're like, oh yeah, I kind of remember when that was on TV. And he's just based his whole life around, those two things. This one TV show, Kid Sheriff, where I don't even, was he the main character of that show? He must have been.
I don't think so. No,
because they kind of are like, oh yeah, you were like that other kid on the show, I think at one point. Yeah. So like he's not even the lead actor of the other show that he was on. And on Gordy's Home, he doesn't seem to have been the lead on that either. Like he was a big part of it, but like he was the kid in the ensemble.
Right.
So that's a good point where he thinks he's bigger than he actually is, and he only is because of the tragedy.
Yeah. And that feeds, again, we'll talk about this later, but it feeds into that his ego really in how he believes. Like, I think obviously they don't say it and he doesn't say it, but the more you think about it, eventually later in the movie, I feel like that almost kind of becomes like almost like some sort of divine intervention for him. Like he kind of believes that there is this thing that prevented him from getting hurt from the Gordy's Home incident, that he was special. And I think that it kind of adds more to his performance later on, as we'll see the things that he does that kind of feeds us that information later on to the audience.
Yeah. So that night they have the cameras pointed up to the sky. You have the praying mantis on the camera. And so Angel's watching and Emma's watching. I think another horse gets out of the stable.
This one's Ghost, I think.
Ghost, yeah. And so Ghost gets out of the stable, and OJ's like, all right, I gotta go look for this horse. Fine, whatever. And he goes into the stable, and he starts looking around, and then you start hearing these like little noises. And I remember when I saw this in the theater the first time, I was like, oh, what's going to happen here? And I'm like, and then this is where we get the first instance of, nope. Like you see this thing right like scutter across the background. And OJ's having none of this, which is, he's such an interesting character because he's a character in a horror movie who kind of acts realistically. Like, I see something spooky. I'm not dealing with that. We're not gonna bother. And so like you see like these little stereotypical kind of alien creatures appear, and they start running after OJ, and turns out they're just kids in costumes. They're Jupe's kids.
One of the aliens who like come next to him, punches straight in the face, and it's just one of the kids, Jupe's kids, who came to like
and they're like, you don't mess with Jupiter's claim, and he's just like, I don't do that. Like he's just like over it. He's just like, I want my horse. Can I get my horse back? And meanwhile, during that night, while all this little nonsense is happening, the power starts to go out. I think Ghost gets eaten by the UFO, and the UFO also picks up the metal horse that M stole earlier, and this is when they come. Yeah,
the metal horse also, like, because you could kind of tell how quickly M stole it, just has like a thread of like colored flags around it. So it just eventually, when the UFO eats the metal horse, like you could still see like that whole thread of flags sticking out. You can just know like, okay, like it has it inside him, but it's not, there's something wrong with it. At least you see it later on as it's trailing behind OJ at night, or trying to get at least everybody else. Like you'll see that ray of flags later on.
Because of those flags, in the morning, they come to realize that like for 6 months or so, like there's one particular cloud that has not moved. And they're like, oh, it's there. It's literally right there, like right in front of us forever. It's been right there. And that's horrifying. Because you just see this like just trail of flags just sticking out of it. And they're like, well, what do we do now? Because the cameras go down regardless. Like we don't know how to capture this thing. Well, it just so happens while they were doing on that film set earlier, when they were doing their safety spiel, the cinematographer of that film, or that commercial, whatever they were shooting, is some world famous cinematographer. His name is Antlers Holst, and M calls him up and is like, "Hey, I got a pitch for you," and he's like, "I don't care, leave me alone." Basically, he's like, I don't need money. And she's like, but we got this documentary. We need you to document something for us. And he was like, all right, well, maybe I'd be interested. And then she's like, well, I'm told you can get the impossible shot. And that like clicks for him. And he's like, yeah, like that's impossible. That's impossible. And then he winds up going to the ranch a little bit later, and he's like, that cloud hasn't moved. They're like, oh, you clocked that real fast. Like you figured this out. He's like, there it is. And then he shows that, well, he has but he has cameras that have no electricity involved. They're all hand crank. And he thinks he can get this shot. So I believe during this time, later that day, the next day is the Star Lasso experience. So meanwhile, over at Antlers leaves, and he goes, he's like, I'm gonna go get my stuff. I'm gonna go get all the film equipment. So he goes. Angel and M are in the house. They're monitoring the cameras. Jupe, he's over at his place, and we cut to Gordy's home, and we kind of see most of the tragedy as it unfolds. There's a lot of cuts in it too, so you don't see too much, but you see the start of them filming the take, and it's like a normal like 90s sitcom. Kooky dad, fun mom, know-it-all sister, and then Jupe is like the kind of slacker brother who's just kind of, he likes to play video games, and he's He's like, well, you listen, I didn't expect you to get him such a big gift. And they bring out Gordy's gift, and they open it up, and it's a bunch of balloons. And then you just hear one pop, and then you hear kind of monkey noises. I'll describe it like that, because this is where I was a little disappointed. I was like, Jordan. You couldn't find a better sound library for your monkey sounds?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I could go on YouTube and type in monkey sounds, because I almost did that for the start of this podcast. So I was like, those are very generic monkey noises you found of just ape making kind of noises over and over again.
Yeah, there's he uses the same one, I think, like 3 different times, and one of them I was like, okay, you thought you were being slick, because I think there's a moment where he's like a bad actor, and they like add a little bit of reverb and stretch it out. I'm like, no, dude, that's the same generic like 90s soundtrack for Chimp.
I was
not.
I was so disappointed. I was like, Jordan. This is the one part of this movie that lets me down. The monkey part. But yeah, so
it's still relatively it's very gruesome.
It's a tense scene. Yeah.
It's a
tense scene. It's gruesome. Although you don't see too much. You don't see him like you don't see the actor themselves get hurt, but you see like Gordy like banging on a body, hitting one of the actors. And then you see the dad kind of run across. And this is all from Jupe's perspective, hiding under the kitchen table of the set. Yeah. And so you see there's like kind of like the overhang of the tablecloth kind of blocking some of the shot. And then you see the dad kind of like try to escape and be like, Gordy, it's okay. And then he gets pulled behind a door, and you see blood splatter across the door. And then Gordy kind of comes out of his trance, like his animalistic trance, and he spots Jupe under the table. And Jupe is like really, really scared. And you just see this like fear on this child's face as the ape slowly gets closer and closer to him. And one of the things that's mentioned earlier in Jupe's office when he's talking about the show is there's this big blow up of a photo of Jupe and Gordy doing a fist bump. Mm-hmm. And Gordy kind of sees Jupe, and he recognizes him, and he starts to go for the fist bump. And as he's going for the fist bump, police bust in and shoot Gordy through the head, and blood goes everywhere. This is the most gruesome. Well, that's not true. Yeah. But like, it's just, and then you just see this monkey die, and it's just like, yeah, that would traumatize a kid. Like that would, and then it cuts from young Jupe's face to Stephen Yeun's face. And he's just like disassociated, zoned out. And they're like, you ready for the show? And he's just like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. So he just like really buries this down, but it's something he thinks about like every day, it seems. Because how could you not? It's such a, especially for what, like 12, 13 years old, you probably think he is at that scene. Like that's such a horrifying thing to experience. And that like that monkey could have attacked you or saw you as his only friend on the set. Because I love this little detail too, when he kind of comes out of his animalistic rampage, is he goes over to like the shoe or the body of one of the actors that he just like pounded and like beat down, knocked out. And he just like taps it, almost looking around like, what's wrong? Where is everybody? Yeah. And I know I did some research. Apparently there's some ASL, because Gordy kind of communicates, I guess, through ASL. And let me see if I could find the exact thing that he says in ASL.
Definitely didn't notice that.
So he says, "What happened, family?" in ASL. Oh, so like shit. He doesn't even realize, as an animal, he doesn't even realize that he did this, because his animalistic instincts kicked in. And when he spots Jupe, he goes over again, his only friend at this point, because he attacked everybody else. And he's just like, oh, okay, I'll do the fist bump, and then we'll be fine. And then he dies. And that's the end of Gordy.
Well, there's there's something that they mention when OJ's in that movie set, and it's pretty much it'll come back as a plot device later on. But the idea of like not looking at an animal directly in the eyes, especially when these cameramen are going up to Lucky when they're at that movie set, and then OJ just tells them, "Hey, please don't look directly at the horse in the eye because they'll just kind of freak them out." And the reason that Juke is okay is because underneath the table you do have that tablecloth, but it's like a veil, like you can only kind of see from the face below underneath like the nose and everything. So implying that basically Gordy couldn't see his eyes. He could see that he was there. He just couldn't have direct eye contact with him. So that helped calm him to a good degree. While everybody else, of course, like the dad and all the other actors were like directly avoiding him face to face. So eventually comes back later. It's just that behavior you have with animals, especially like trying to train live animals, was that becomes a very important part in order like for most of these characters to survive later on. But the actor who played Gordy is actor Terry Notary, who's
back in action, baby.
Back in action. Not so long ago. I mean, I don't think I was here. I think I was there for what was it? War for Planet of the Apes. He was in that one, or at least in the most recent.
He was Rocket in War for the Planet of the Apes. I think I've probably talked about Terry Notary on the show more than anyone else. He's in all the Planet of the Apes movies. He even did the 2001 Planet of the Apes film. That's where he like first got into like monkey acting. He did King Kong, the recent King Kong movies. That's pretty much always him. Like he's your monkey guy. And once again, you need a monkey. You call up Terry.
Hey man, you got to get him on this podcast, dude.
I know. I got to reach out to his people.
Yeah.
They haven't announced the next Planet of the Apes film yet, so I think he might be free for a little bit. But you never know where he might pop up. He might pop up in the next Jordan Peele film as another monkey.
Yeah. Maybe
he might be in that upcoming Robbie Williams biopic where
I heard about that, dude. Yeah. I don't doubt that. He's a full blown monkey these days, that's his expertise.
Listen, he's busy. He's a busy guy. So we cut back to Juke in the present day, and he's about to put on his new Rootin' Tootin' Wild West experience, the Star Lasso experience, and he goes out in front of his crowd. And I kind of love this because I mentioned before, his park is not popular in any means. Like he's built a mini kind of stadium in the middle, like kind of out on the outskirts of his park. And it's got, I would say, like 250 seats, and maybe 30 are filled for this experience. Most of which seem to be his employees as well. Yeah. They're just kind of hanging out in the back. And so, like, his wife, I guess, does a little song and dance or whatever. And then she introduces him, and he gives a big speech about how he has overcome so much. And, he's going to present to you the spectacle that you've been waiting for, and only he can give you this spectacle. And you turn around and you see on his jacket, he's got like a UFO embroidered into his cowboy attire.
Hey, it's a sick looking costume. I'm not gonna lie.
It's cool. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And like, he's just like, you're gonna see something you've never seen before. I have communicated with them. They trust me. Like I am the only one that can do this. And I think that comes from the idea where you said before, he thinks he's special because he survived the Gordy attack. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I've done it once, and I've been doing it every night, because turns out he's been feeding all of OJ's horses to the UFO for his practice runs of his show, his experience. And so while they're waiting for the UFO to appear, he's like, I'll have my boys come on out. And then they also mention, and you kind of see very briefly in the stands, you see this woman, she has a veil over her face. And I forgot the character's name, but it's his
Mary
sister.
Jo Elliott.
Yeah. It's his sister from Gordy's home. And you see that Gordy messed up her face, like ripped it off. And I believe that comes from, there was a monkey, a chimp, attack in like 2017 or something, where
Yeah.
someone's face was actually like ripped off. So Jordan Peele kind of took inspiration from that for this character, and she had to get reconstructive surgery, and it's upsetting. It's upsetting to look at, I'll be honest. But like, you know, these things happen, but you know, Jupe is nice about it. He's like very excited to have her in the audience. She was my first crush. I don't know why you'd say that in front of your wife, but you know, make her feel good. You know?
Yeah, and
But-
it's like she, like her. It's sad to think about her character because like you can only imagine how much she also still embodies that event, because she's like, yeah, she has a hat with a veil to kind of cover her
Mhm.
disconfigured face, but she's wearing a shirt with her face from the show to basically be like, yeah, this is me. I'm this person, and this happened to me. And it's very sad, just because it's almost like it's her whole personality. It's her whole character.
It's all she can really do, I guess.
Yeah.
Because and I think it's for one of two reasons that she's wearing a shirt. Like, yeah, it's like, okay, this is the deeper meaning is like what you're saying right here, where it's like, yeah, this is all I can kind of like, this is me. This is who I am. But also the cynic in me, for silly little audience members, because the first time I saw it, I was not paying attention, I guess, because I didn't realize that was her. So seeing her face as like the younger character on her shirt is like, oh, that's who that is. It's like, oh yeah, so that makes way more sense. Because I thought that like no one survived the massacre the first time I saw it, because I think I was just so like thrown off. I was like, this is weird to be in your UFO movie. But like, yeah, no, it makes sense. And like, yeah, it is a sad, even though he says it, I just wasn't paying attention. I was really thrown off, I guess. But like, it's a sad kind of thing to experience. And what's upsetting is that it's like, it's real. And it's like, there are people out there who have, and it's not just, you know, monkey attacks, because that is a rare occurrence. But, you know, people with burns and other disfigurements, they kind of are shunned by people, and they have to hide themselves because, like, you know, society might not accept them entirely. And I do kind of wish we had a little bit more with her, just to like a conversation, because she doesn't speak at all.
Yeah, no. At least this version,
just to be like,
the
yeah,
later version.
yeah.
Of
Just I wish we had a little bit more with her, just to be like, how does she kind of cope with everything and feel about the attack, and is she also profiting off of it, or is she just there to support Jupe because he's still her friend? Like, what is I would love to know their relationship a little bit further, but the show must go on because the UFO appears a little bit early.
Interesting.
And
he calls the UFO, like he coins them the viewers.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. So he does call them the viewers, and it's fun because like they cut to like a memorabilia stand, and he's kind of made up what he thinks they look like, and it's the creatures we saw earlier attack OJ on the farm. Just weird, kind of half ape, half, because they're furry bodies, and then they have the like stereotypical like gray man head,
black eyes and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just like, this is what they look like, I think. You know, and they think it's a ship, and he's like, all right, well, they're here. They want to start the show early. I guess we'll start the show early. And he lines up Lucky, who's in this gray box, and he's like, go on, get. And Lucky's like, I'm not. Lucky does not move an inch, stays very still. And he's like, that's weird. That's not normal. And you see slowly as the UFO slowly comes closer and closer and closer, and starts to suck everybody up into the UFO hole. And then we get a really upsetting scene where you see the people kind of traveling through the insides of the UFO, and it's like following them through a digestive tract. It's really weird, and you just hear their screams and the horror, and it's just like, ugh, like gross.
It's very claustrophobic, and there's like, I don't know if it's his wife, because like we kind of stick with one person, and like she has long hair, so I think it's his wife, but like she ends up going up this maybe digestive system or esophagus or something, but they hit like a horse's skull. And that's when you kind of realize, like, they kind of realize, like, holy shit, like, this is actually happening. But yeah, it's terrifying. It goes on for quite a while, and all you hear is just like these screams and kind of these crunches going on.
Yeah, this is the most upsetting. I was going to say the Gordy attack is the most upsetting. No, this is the most upsetting part of this movie.
No doubt about it.
And you're just like, gross. Meanwhile, back at the farm, OJ had left because he's like, I'm going to get Lucky back because I want my horse back, actually. And so he leaves. So he's out of the way. He's actually heading towards Jupiter's Claim as this attack is happening. And he kind of sees some of this go down, and the UFO is kind of circling around Jupiter's Claim, and you just see the destruction of like the Star Lasso experience booth is basically destroyed. And he gets Lucky out of the little cage that Lucky's in, and he winds up getting knocked out at the Star Lasso experience, and he's down for the count for a little bit. So then we cut back to the farm, and Angel's like, all right, well, not much is happening. I'm gonna head back, and he gets in his little van, and he starts playing. What's the song?
I think it's called "I Wear My Sunglasses at Night."
Yeah, so that starts playing, and like it's kind of like dusk, I would say, at this point. So it's not fully nighttime. And he starts driving, and he's just like singing along to the song, and then it just slowly powers down, and he's like, no, none of this. And he gets out of his car, and he runs back to the house, and he like grabs a knife, and I'm like, what are you doing with it? Like, what do you think you're gonna do, man? Like,
he grabs a knife, he's like, we're in trouble, and he goes straight underneath the table. You go, dude.
Yeah,
smart idea.
So they both duck under furniture because they're like, oh, yep, the UFO is here, and it's mad. It's very mad, and you just start seeing pieces of metal fall from the sky and start hitting the house in all different kinds of ways, and then the blood of all the people like just starts raining down around the house, just pouring down, and it's this. I don't know why, but it reminded me of Poltergeist, where it's just just like the house is being covered in blood, and they're hiding and cowering, and they're like, oh my God. And meanwhile, OJ is driving his truck with Lucky in the back, and he kind of sees this kind of happening to the house, and he's like, I don't know about this. And he's got the car running and everything. His car goes down, and you start hearing the kind of predator kind of noises happening. And does it start to rain on his car? Yeah, it does, right? The blood starts to rain on his car.
What's interesting about it is because it, like, I didn't notice it the first time, but like the way they kind of set this up in the scene was very, very cool. Because like it's like a storm. Everything's raining. It's raining heavily, but you start to notice exactly where the UFO is because it kind of provides like a weird umbrella over the house and over these characters. So then when they look out the window, like it stops raining around them, but the rain is like super far away. So it's like right above their heads. And then when it like goes towards OJ, you hear the rain like slowly come back to the house and kind of like go towards OJ. So at least kind of gives you a good idea of where the UFO is. But I think another creepy aspect, we're kind of jumping back into it, is that this UFO is smart as hell. And like, yes, it's pissed, but it's super petty about it because it has everybody from Jupiter's Claim still inside its mouth. They're still screaming until like you hear these crunches and it stops. And that's when he lets all the blood come down on the house. Like he literally kept everybody there just to kind of make a message to the Haywood Ranch.
It's like, hey, don't mess with me.
Let me show you exactly what's going to happen to you if you do this again.
Yeah, not happy about the metal horse you've shoved up my mouth. OJ feels the consequences of that because, like, this is the second time where he's just like, it's raining blood and there's like coins and whatever falling from the sky, and he opens the door. He like looks up for a second, and then he's like, "Oh, close the door. He's like, we're just gonna sit here. We're just gonna sit here. We're gonna wait. And it's, you know, the UFO is sending that message to the people, just like, don't mess with me. And it spits the metal horse down, and it crashes through the windshield of OJ's car. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out what it was for a while. I was like, what just crashed through?
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the outside, and it's like, oh, okay, it was the horse with the flags at the end of it. And they were like, okay. And then like it becomes daytime, so he's been sitting there for a while, and the power goes back on, and he just slowly turns on his car, and he slowly drives to the house, and he's just like, so I think it's Matt. Yeah. And so you start hearing the song again from Angel's car. And OJ kind of abandons like Lucky at this point. Like he's just like, Lucky's in the thing. It's gonna be fine. And he opens the car door to Angel's car because his car is basically ruined at this point. And he's just like calling for M and calling for Angel. He's like, come on, let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's go. And he's like calling them as if they're animals, like the horses he trains. He's like, yep, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And he's like tapping on the door and everything, and they run out, and they all hop into Angel's car. And it's then he kind of figures out, like he's looking down at the ground, and then he looks up for a second, and then he looks back down at the ground. He's realizing, like you were saying before, he was like, maybe this isn't a ship that we think it is. Maybe it's not a UFO.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not looking at it, it's not attacking me in any capacity. Mm-hmm. So they all get into Angel's car, and they drive back to good old Burbank, Los Angeles. And they're hiding out at Angel's apartment, and they're like, well, what do we do? And they try to come up with, they're like, do we go back? Do we just call it from here? And they go back and forth on this.
They have a conversation at like a fried seafood place or something. They're like eating fried fish sandwiches. Bit of a tangent, but like I was like trying to like look for little things and clues. I'm like, there's like hidden meanings throughout the movie and things that kind of like add more to the theme. But outside the restaurant, there's like a group of high school football players that just start fighting outside the window. And I was like, I still don't understand it. I don't know if anyone else, like whoever's listening, I guess will be like, okay, there's a reason behind it. But I was like, it's right there. I have no idea why we had to take this whole fucking tangent of it. But yeah, like I think they're at the restaurant where they're like, and both M and Angel were just like, no, why would you even want to go back there? But OJ's like adamant. He said, no, I think I'd be able to figure this out because that's, you know, that's a horse trainer in him, the animal trainer in him. He feels like he's got the right solution. But I think it was right before then M gets the text message from Antlers and like says like, that's basically when I'm going to come over to help you guys out.
Yeah. And then because that's when they decide that, okay, now we'll go back to the farm. Because for a moment they're like, do we go back? Like that was horrifying and scary, actually. This is when they name the UFO Jean Jacket, which was the name of M's horse that she was supposed to train with her father. But there was another movie, I think it was The Scorpion King.
The Scorpion King.
And they wound up training the horse for the Scorpion King, and she didn't get to train her horse. So she kind of has a bit of a sentimental feeling to that name. So they're like, okay, so the UFO is now called Jean Jacket, and that's what we will probably call it for the rest of the podcast, just because it's easier to name it something.
Right.
And so they have this plan where they go back to the house, and Antlers is there, and Angel is there, and they're like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to be on the mountain over there. I'm OJ. I'm going to disturb it, make it upset. And M, you're also there. You capture some footage as well if you can.
Yeah.
You know, you help me out. Like she's kind of like on the distraction team with OJ. And so while they're setting up their plan, you see them, M goes and steals a bunch of wacky inflatable arm men from just like car parking lots and stuff. Angel and M, I think.
50.
Yeah.
There's like 50 of them.
M go to Jupiter's claim and steal all the dead people's car batteries. They're like, sorry, dead people, as they like load the batteries into the car.
He's like, park is closed.
And then they you see that like their plan is to set up these wacky inflatable tomb men like every 100 feet or so, just so they can kind of have because they know they can't look at it, so they can't be looking up. So they're like, what if we look down? So the wacky inflatable arm men are all each hooked up to a car battery, and if they go down, that's where the UFO is. That's the general idea.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to execute the plan. OJ puts an orange Scorpion King hoodie on with these two like kind of blinders on the back of his head, so kind of make it look like he's looking at Jean Jacket. And he hops on Lucky, and he's like, all right, let's go. Meanwhile, Antlers and Angel, they're like under some cover in the mountain over on the side, and they all have their own agenda and plan. And just as they're about to start the plan, some guy on an electric motorcycle starts like running in, and M comes out and is like, hello, hi, who are you? And he's just like, what do you know about the missing people at Jupiter's claim? And she's just like, nope, not answering your questions, just go away. And then he's just like, screw it, and just rides like away. Just like, I don't know what this man's plan was or where he was going, but they figure out he's like a TMZ reporter, and they're like, TMZ's here. And
he has like 4 cameras. I mean, he has the one on his helmet, and he whips out like a handheld with like a very elaborate camera and like a video camera. Like this dude's ready to record fucking everything. And
this I thought this was a funny scene too, because they make it a specific point that it's an electric motorbike, because like when you're around the UFO, it's an EMP, like you're saying, and no electricity can operate. So he's going 60 miles an hour down this dirt road, and then as soon as he reaches the point where he's under the UFO, he just stops and his body goes flying. And they're like well, that's what happens. And then OJ goes back and forth, and he's like, fine, let me go check on him. So he rides up to him, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go dark. I have to go see if this guy's okay. And you just see this guy's legs and arms are like broken in all different directions. And he's like, why aren't you recording, man? And he's like, shut up. Like,
the first thing he asks is like, where's my phone? I'm like, dude, what the hell are you doing?
He's like, why didn't you record me wiping out? Yeah.
Weirdly enough, his helmet almost kind of reminds me of that mirror ball that scared Lucky at the beginning of when he's at the movie set. I'm like, there's really no other reason why you could have had a super reflective helmet other than just like, okay, cool, thematic tie-in. But yeah, he's like banged up. He's obsessed with this phone. Like, where's my phone? Why aren't you recording this? He's all like, where's my camera? He just wants to record everything that's going on.
Yeah. Well, and so OJ is like gonna help him. But like you were saying, like his whole helmet is chrome, metal, whatever, reflective. And it does remind OJ of that metal ball at the start of the movie. And, it obviously pisses off Jean Jacket, and Jean Jacket just sucks the guy right up. And you just hear him screaming, and OJ's like, gotta get out of here. Sorry, buddy. And just like rides away. And so like their little chase begins. And so they're trying to, meanwhile, like on the mountain, they're trying to capture this incident on the hand crank IMAX camera and other small Bolex camera that they have. And they're both Angel and Antlers are working together, and they run out of footage at one point. They run out of film. So they're like, oh crap, like we have to replace it. And so that's taking some time. It's like, during the perfect time too. And so like, they're all mad about it. Meanwhile, they just kind of go back and forth, and then they basically they wind up capturing Jean Jacket on film, and they're like, we did it, fantastic, everybody high five. And then Antlers looks up, and he's like, sun's getting to that magic hour right now, and everyone's like, we're good, man, we're fine. And he's like, all right, I gotta go do something. And he takes his little tiny Bolex hand crank camera, and he leaves Angel alone. He's like, all right, see ya. And he like goes up the mountain like a little bit further, and he's just like, I gotta get the perfect shot, because if you don't know what magic hour is, let me explain. It's this time of day where when you're filming, it's like people consider it the perfect time to shoot something, because there's no shadows and the sun is in the perfect position, and it makes things look a lot nicer, basically. And, film productions, they like to shoot around this time, but you have a very limited window because it's only like an hour a day. There's usually in the morning and one magic hour in the afternoon or at night. And Antlers is going up to try to capture Jean Jacket on his handheld camera, and it does not work in any capacity. Within probably 40 seconds of him being up there, he gets sucked up, and the footage that they show from his Volex camera is terrible. It's not good at all.
Yeah.
What a waste. And he gets sucked. Yeah.
It's implied that he's sick, and that I would assume is that he's dying. Because right before they actually start recording, before they start doing their plan, you can see he's like taking like a handful of pills, and he's like coughing up a lot. And so I think just something I kind of noticed is that he's dying, or he's really sick. So even then, regardless, I was like, this might have been not even something he wanted to record, realizing it was never going to get released. It was just for his own vanity, his own like accomplishment as like a cinematographer. He's like, I'm just going to do this and go out the way I want to go, and say that I actually did it during magic hour. Because then, I don't know.
I didn't really pick up on that, but I guess, that would make the most sense, because like, why would you just be like, listen, I got the shot,
but that camera's going with you, though. It's like, that camera's going with you. Where's it going to go afterwards? So that's where, like, I noticed, and I was all like, okay, now that makes a lot better sense, because at first I was like, did you just, I don't know if it's a cinematographer in you that you just got to like go out and say you did this just for your own like pride, but I was like, no, at least now he has a much more logical.
You had to get the impossible. And let me tell you, it's impossible. It didn't happen for him. It didn't work out. Turns out he wasn't what he was kind of calling out to be. So because Antlers goes and sacrifices himself, this puts Angel in danger. And so Angel kind of gets attacked by Jean Jacket, and he gets kind of swirled around, but he finds he takes a hit in this.
Yeah.
He's fallen down the mountain, and he gets wrapped up. He wraps himself up in barbed wire. So Jean Jacket like picks him up at one point and starts to suck him up into the hole. And because he's wearing barbed wire, he kind of gets spit out really quickly. And so he takes like a tumble, and you see him land like, and he just flops down the mountain. And you're like, is he okay? Like,
he really should have been dead.
Out,
both broken arms or like a leg or something, because that looked brutal.
Well, his character was supposed to die apparently in earlier drafts, but the actor was like, had to like convince Jordan Peele to be like, come on, man, keep me alive. So he winds up just kind of tumbling down the mountain, and his story is basically done. He's pretty much done for the movie. Mm-hmm. So while that's happening, Jean Jacket starts to shed its initial form and unfold into, I don't know how to describe it, because it's an interesting shape.
Yeah, I heard someone say it was like inspired from like, what's that? I don't even know this show, but something Evangelion or something like that.
Yes, I did read. It was Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Evangelion, yeah.
An anime. Listen, I've learned Jordan Peele is a weeb, but loves his anime.
Big piece of evidence later, like right towards the end. We'll talk about it in a moment. But yeah, he's a weeb.
Yeah, so the UFO Jean Jacket starts to unfold itself, and it becomes this kind of abstract shape, because that's the best way I can describe it.
Like a angel squid or something.
Yeah, it's got big wing-looking things, and I mentioned this at the start when we were talking about the credits. There's like this kind of like box shape, and the box shape that the credits played over was like, I guess the mouth of the UFO of Jean Jacket. And what's really interesting too is that like it has multiple layers and colors. So like one piece of the box will like peel off and it's green, and then it's yellow, and then it's red, I think, at one point. And it just keeps kind of flopping, and that's not the right word, but it just peels away. Yeah, pulsating, and it's just like, this is, well, I remember seeing this, and this might be why people might not love this movie so much compared to his other ones. It's kind of weird. It's like, and it's what I like about it is that it's a different way to represent a UFO or an alien creature, because it's like you thought it was going to be these little gray men, like Stephen Yeun kind of thought it would be, but it's not. It's something you really can't comprehend, and like no one would, if you saw that in real life, no one would believe you that that's what that was.
Yeah,
it's kind. It's. I really wish. As an audio medium, this is not helpful, but it's like a bunch of, if you haven't seen the movie, you're going to be like, what are you talking about? But like, it's like a bunch of ribbons, kind of like, and like you were saying, like angelic ribbons, and it has a lot of flow and movement to it.
We're like scratching the surface of what it actually like. Once you you're just like, okay, we're like, this is just fairly understanding.
It's very. It's like if you were reading Eldritch's horror kind of book. I don't know if you ever read like what's the Cthulhu? What's that author?
Oh, the Call of Cthulhu. That's like oh my god, H.P. Lovecraft. Like a little Lovecraft. Yeah,
I read a little bit of a Lovecraft one time, and it was like, it was the scariest thing you've ever seen. Imagine the scariest thing. It's 10 times scarier than that. That's kind of how we're describing.
Yeah. We're not doing this justice.
No, but like, just you figure it out, or Google it if you don't want to watch the movie. Google it. Just type in nope final form. But OJ is on one side of Jean Jacket, and M runs to the electric motorcycle, because that's one of her skills. She can ride motorcycle. And OJ decides, hey, I'm going to sacrifice myself to save M. And he looks up at it and starts to draw its attention away. And M gets on the motorcycle. And before they go their separate ways, OJ gives her this look like, I'm watching you, puts 2 fingers to his eyes and just kind of points them back at her. And she does it back, being like, yep, I see you. I got you. And they both go their separate ways. And OJ starts riding Lucky in one direction to kind of chase Jean Jacket away from M. And M starts riding, and she rides her way to Jupiter's Claim. And as she's going, she makes her way through the wreckage and the police tape. And she does an Akira slide, where she puts one leg down and just slides her way over to the winking well that takes the photos. And the winking well seems to operate entirely on hand crank power. So there's a bunch of coins on the ground from the massacre of Jean Jacket earlier. And so she starts picking up coins. And before she does that, she starts releasing these tethers of this giant Jupe balloon that is kind of like the mascot of Jupiter's Claim. And it shoots the balloon up into the sky, which then gets Jean Jacket's attention and starts coming over. And M starts putting the coins into the winking well and starts turning the crank. And you see the flash go off, and it's nothing. It's just kind of a photo of the balloon. And you see slowly Jean Jacket confronts the balloon and then starts to eat the balloon because it sees it as a threat. And the balloon starts to go up inside Jean Jacket's body, and you kind of see, you get another POV of inside the intestinal tract or the esophagus or whatever, and you see it kind of like shifting, and it gets kind of caught. And then M is still cranking away, and it goes off. M gets the shot. The balloon gets caught in the throat and explodes, and you see Jean Jacket, the UFO, just explode. And it's dead. It seems seemingly dead, and M celebrates. And as the dust settles, you see OJ on Lucky, and he's there. And then cut to credits.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
It's an interesting finale, and like I said, it's not really scary at this point because post Jupe getting eaten and the Jupiter Claim massacre, I would say like it's not scary post that. It's just like, okay, well, it's a how are we going to kill this thing kind of movie, like you're saying, like Jaws.
Yeah.
So it just becomes the third act of Jaws.
The threat has been already like established. It's like, all right, now we have all our pieces. How the are we going to try to win the day on this? But I think just kind of a full circle moment. I just noticed this on this recent screening or viewing, I guess. But I don't know. It was weird starting off with Gordy's rampage, starting because of a balloon going off, and that's the thing that kills Jean Jacket, which is the popping of a balloon. I was like, a nice little, at least closure to Jupe in some weird way. I was like, okay, that felt like
he kind of kills it in the end.
Yeah, I feel so bad for him. I'm like, listen, man, like you were kind of misunderstood, or you misunderstood a lot of your own trauma and stuff. You'd rather create a park and like a diorama display instead of going to therapy. But sure, man, you did what you wanted to do, and I guess died doing what you loved to some degree.
Yeah. I do feel bad for Jupe. I like Jupe as a character, and maybe that's just a testament to Steven Yeun as an actor, because it's like he's not a bad guy. He's just trying to make money off of his life. You know, that's like kind of like his co-star. He's like, well, this is all he knows. It's a good movie. And you said this is your favorite Jordan Peele movie?
Yeah, this one by a lot. I think it's really because of the way it's just kind of been made. I think it has a really nice pace, and it's just a lot of fun to watch, especially after all the scary parts. There's just a lot of pieces and a lot of like setups and callbacks that just make sense on a thematic level. And you look at it, you're like, I will say that I think thematically it's a lot more ambiguous than like Us or even Get Out. But I don't know. I think everything that happens in the movie, just when you look at what I guess the implied themes are, they are done very well. And I just kind of like just noticed a bunch of small little things that are just like, holy shit, like Jordan Peele didn't just want to make a regular UFO movie. He has other ideas that some people still ponder on. Like I just noticed, I guess when OJ goes to try to get Lucky back and he's noticing how up all of Jupiter's Claim is, there's a pig on the roof. And he kind of
there is a pig on the roof.
And it's just that it's not entirely 100% accurate, but to some degree it is, where pigs can't physically look directly up into the sky. So like that's the reason why it stayed alive, because it's not able to look directly at Jean Jacket. And then also weird little thing, I was like, I don't think this is a coincidence. This is me just overthinking it. That's why I like these sort of movies, because I'm like, at the end of the day, I could be absolutely wrong, but for me it makes sense. But during the Jupiter's Claim bit, and when Jupe is trying to do the show, yes, you have an icy machine to establish that when it goes off, like Jean Jacket's there. But it's the idea of the IC for me, where it's like a little thing where I'm like, you know what? It might not make sense. I don't care. Maybe there was a promotional tie-in or some sort of marketing thing. I don't care.
That's good.
That's good. There. So I don't know. That's why I really enjoyed it, and it's so much fun, man. Like that last part. I want to give credit for sure to the composer. I forgot his name here. Let me pull him up real fast. Yeah, to Michael Abels. He the whole score, the piece he does when OJ is like trying to lure Jean Jacket, like try to get him for that blast money shot. He puts on the Scorpion King hoodie on. It goes on to like this full blown Western track that just it's so riveting and a lot of fun. But I like it because I still think about it to this day, and I think there's small little things that are like, sure, it doesn't fully tie in everything and doesn't answer all the questions, but they put a lot of thought into it.
So is this a monkey see, monkey do? Or monkey see, monkey don't?
Oh, hell yeah, man. Monkey see, monkey do. All monkeys got to see this, man. Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, this is for sure a monkey see, monkey do. It's good. And like, personally, I don't know if it's my favorite Jordan Peele movie. I think Get Out is still his best work. But none of his movies are bad. He's done a great job. 3 for 3.
He's talented.
Especially on the rewatch here. I liked it, I think, more this time, which was, it's just it's a solid movie. I was talking to you before. I just watched 2 terrible movies earlier in the week, and I was just like, oh yeah, movies can be good. Movies can.
Yeah, and it's like it's been what, a little more than 2 years since it came out.
Yeah,
you're right. It's not really in the public conversation these days. Not as much as I personally would like, but I don't know. I think later on, as time goes on, I think it's still going to be one of those movies that people would just kind of reminisce and see just kind of how fun it is. It's still a very fun, entertaining movie, but I think that it's kind of touches on a very interesting conversation just about, exploiting either very horrific events for one's own gain, or also just generally, I think one thing that I kind of noticed is just how obsessed, I guess, we are with wanting to record a lot of these very interesting events, using it as a way to kind of like put a barrier between us and whatever's actually going on. And that idea of like a camera as like a defense mechanism in some way, at least that's how I've been perceiving it, because there's so much thought into, you have the movie set, you have, trying to grab this perfect shot, you are trying to like, different mediums they talk about, movies, TV shows that just kind of like touch on that. But I don't know, there's small little things that I think you can kind of pick up if you keep rewatching it over and over, and it's always fresh. Like, this is my 5th time seeing this movie, and I still pick up on a lot of cool things in this view.
Yeah. I mean, like, it just peppered with small details and interesting, just like little tidbits. Like, I never would have known about like Gordy's ASL to Jupe if I hadn't like looked it up for this. But like that's just like such a small detail that such a small portion of people, because it must happen like really, really quickly in that scene, because you don't really see him do too much, Gordy, that is. And, that might just be like a small thing that like Terry Notary might have thrown in, or, maybe it was a thing that Jordan Peele wanted to have in there. Something interesting, if we pivot towards Gordy real quick and how he is as a monkey in the movie. I mean, I feel like of the movies I have watched for this series, I would say that probably the most realistic portrayal, even though it's not a real monkey.
Yeah.
Like, certainly not King Kong and not Planet of the Apes, where they're upright and talking. But like, yeah, and this movie kind of speaks towards the dangers of animals, like, and how like we kind of let our guard down a little bit too much when we humanize them, because they make a joke about it. They're like, look what happened to Siegfried and Roy, and look what happened, like, I think OJ says like at one point, it's like, yeah, like in 2017, we had to stop working with chimps because, and that, like, maybe because of Gordy's home. But like, I think in reality, it was because of that incident where that poor woman got her face ripped off. We romanticize like, oh, isn't it cool that we can, Clint Eastwood boxed an orangutan or whatever. And it was like, yeah, that's cool. But also like, that's a dangerous animal. Like,
yeah,
like, and that's kind of what this movie's about in another way, where it's like, animals are animals. Like, and we, like, Jupe try to tame it, try to tame this otherworldly creature, when in reality, it's going to bite the hand that feeds you.
That's where he even mentions, he's like, I think when he talks about Jean Jacket, where there's like certain animals, I think he talked about Gordy in some respect, if I'm not mistaken, but he also said like when you're dealing with a predator, it's like you think that you're gonna be able to train it, but that's not the point. You're not expecting it to fall under your training. You have to come to an agreement with it. And then, Angel's like, well, how do you come up with an agreement to a predator, let alone a space creature? Like, how do you do that? And it's like, well, you just have to respect its power, its unpredictability, and understand that, you're not in control of this thing at all. You have to work around it instead of having you kind of get to where you want it to go.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very important conversation to have, especially just because, as fake as, of course, Gordy was, all done through CGI, like, it is the most realistic part of the whole movie, in which, like, yeah, this sort of attack is absolutely possible. Rare, but it is possible. And also, it's like people trying to make sense of those scenarios and say, oh, the chimp was just horrible. Like it was raised poorly, or maybe the chimp was like lost its mind, or maybe was diseased. It's like, no, it's just there are certain instincts that kind of come up, and you just have to face the wrath of that instinct. Like it's not the chimp's fault at all. It's just he's a wild animal. And you're here expecting that there was a specific reason as to why the animal is the way it is. Like, there's no reason. Because then when you try to find a reason, it just kind of makes things a lot worse.
Yeah. I mean, monkey's gonna monkey. And, lion's gonna lion, and tiger's gonna tiger. Like, I mean, I'm trying to, was it called Roar? This is a tangent.
Oh, Roar is like the exploitation film, right?
Yeah, I think that was the name of it.
Like the family that goes, like in the 70s, right? The family goes into like a
yeah. So there's a movie from like the 70s, and I think or early 80s called Roar, and they used like a lot of real lions, and like everyone on that set got hurt in some capacity. Like and it like they were putting like these like lions, like 10, 20 tigers or lions like around these actors, and it's just like how could we have done such a thing? Like obviously that's unsafe.
Yeah.
But like in the context of like that's just kind of what Hollywood was doing. Like in the 70s and the 80s, heck, probably even back to like when movies first started, it was like, I don't know, throw the lion in there, see what happens. I mean, look at the MGM logo. That was a real lion.
I was just gonna say that.
Like it's kind of crazy, like, just kind of hoping for the best and being like, yeah, they could be trained animals, but like you can't take all of the instincts away from them. And that makes it scary, and that's why mostly CGI monkeys. That's why Terry Notary has a job today.
Because I'm glad he's doing business. I'm glad he's busy. He's a busy guy. He kind of deserves it.
So I'll ask the question: if we took Gordy out of this movie, would it make too much of a difference? Like, what is the movie that we have? And I think like Gordy's an interesting subplot, but I think you would still have the same movie for the most part. You just remove a lot of the context that we just kind of talked about taming the animal.
Right.
But like you would still have a thrilling adventure where OJ and M are trying to search for a UFO. Jupe would be probably different in this. I mean,
he wouldn't be as much. He wouldn't be as sympathetic, I think.
He'd be more arrogant. Yeah.
Right.
He'd just be like, look, I'm trying to tame this UFO. And you wouldn't have all his backstory.
He would have been like the mayor of Jaws, where it's like, it's a bad idea. We're just going to talk back to that. He would have been the mayor of Jaws.
We just would have Jaws. This would just be Jaws again.
Well, the July
Air Jaws.
Yeah, people want to see this. I totally agree with you, but I think there are certain themes that we were just talking about that I think would still translate okay-ish without Gordy and without all that involving with him, without Monkey. But
I know a lot of people have problems with the Gordy section of the movie because they're like, oh, it's so different and so like it has nothing, like it doesn't affect the main plot. No, but like we were saying, like it adds so much more depth and context to the movie that I think it's essential. Well, not essential, but I think it's important to have, but if it wasn't in there,
you'd miss a pretty good. There's a kind of very interesting aspect of note that adds much to its like delivery, its execution. It's even its own storytelling with all the Gordy aspects kind of sprinkled in between there. You remove all that, then you do feel like there's absolutely something missing. You would notice it.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not a not a fun one, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Another piece of trivia I just found is that I believe it was Jupe's character, although because it would probably make the most sense. But Stephen Yoon, I don't think was the original choice for Jupe.
I
I
heard about that.
believe it
Yeah.
was Jesse Pellman's, and he turned it down to be in uh, what was the movie from last year? What was that called?
Civil War.
No. With
Oh,
DiCaprio. What was it?
Scorsese movie. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon. Yeah,
Yeah,
so he
yeah,
turned it down to be in that. I think if he was in that role, I think it would be a very different role. I think for some reason, like he's good at playing the nice guy too, but I think he would have been a little bit more menacing.
Yeah.
Like he just has a menacing vibe and he kills it with menacing characters. Whereas Stephen Yoon is always kind of like I mentioned before, he's kind of like the nice guy. So it's just like, oh, okay. Like, he's the cool, nice guy. And you're a little bit more sympathetic towards him. So I think having Stephen Yoon, I think helps that character a bunch too, as opposed to Jesse Pellman's, who would be like, kind of like the mayor from Jaws. I feel like he would give off that vibe a little bit more.
Yeah. He does have a menacing aura to him, and I'm just thinking about his character in Game Night. How is that profitable?
Who is a good guy?
How is that profitable for Frito Lay is still like menacing as I don't care. It's a menacing question.
Do you have any other fun facts or trivia about this movie that you want to mention?
Well, there's a quote at the beginning of the movie. There's a Bible verse that I think really just, looking back on it, like if you're watching this for the first time, you kind of get a good sense of what the movie's trying to tell you. But I think it just really wraps up everything in a nice way if you really kind of look at it under that lens. But I think if I found the right one, it's Nahum 3:6. There's like a new kind of translation for it, but it's, I will pelt you with filth, I will treat you with contempt and make you a spectacle. And I think the key word is just that, as spectacle. And, the lengths you will go to get that spectacle or make a spectacle, but at whose expense, right? At the cost, at somebody's cost. And whether it be an animal, your own personal expense, maybe your own friend or something like that. It really adds up a lot to the characters. And I think the one who really emphasizes that is the TMZ guy, just because, again, he shows up with like 4 fucking cameras.
Yeah.
And then just like one little thing I kind of noticed, just because it's just a thought that I had as I was watching it. But when we get the title cards to all the animals' names, like they're based in those chapters, there's like a light at the bottom of these text boxes, like a small little light. And then at the end credits, like as I was kind of scrolling through it, it looks like almost like a transition from like early morning to night. I don't really think it has any relevance to like the themes or anything, but it just kind of because it ends up with a really cool Western score. And it kind of almost made like, okay, cool. We're riding from like almost like when you're going to Jupiter's Claim where you go in the morning and he says at the end, you hear his voiceovers are like, all right, folks, time to ride off into the sunset. And then you just see it kind of adds like this sunset color to it. I thought it was really cool. Just a nice little touch to kind of help elevate the score a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's other small things I could bring up, but obviously for people who are obviously watching this right now and have seen it or already want to hear the spoilers, or people who are watching or listening to this and listen to all the spoilers without having actually seen the movie, I would still recommend you guys watch it because there's just a lot of visual treats and ideas that we obviously cannot really give service here to right now. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, like we're terrible at describing, and it's an audio medium, and like it is a great movie. You should absolutely watch it. A fun little treat that I found while researching this movie is that while promoting the film, Jordan Peele released the intro to Gordy's Home on Twitter. So if you go on YouTube, you can actually see like a 60-second like intro to Gordy's Home with it looks just like a 90s sitcom, and there's some great shots, like it's the characters walking in and being like doing a little shrug and being like and then their like character's name appears on the screen. But there's a great shot of Gordy, they're like the plot of the show is really weird because it seems to be, according to that intro, that Gordy was a space chimp that went into space and then was adopted by like the scientists or the astronauts who went into space.
Yeah.
And there's a shot of Gordy like giving a good thumbs up while like looking through a telescope. I love it. It's fantastic. So if you have an opportunity, go online and go on YouTube, or if you have the DVD, I'm sure it's on that, and look up Gordy's home intro. It's pretty fun. And a nice homage to the films of or the sitcoms of the 90s.
I did now thinking about this, just kind of then just visual things I kind of pick up and always think about. But Jean Jacket goes to his final form, and you see like, I think it's when he gets defensive, you see, like you said, that kind of like weird fabric that kind of like pulsates. It almost kind of looks like a square hood to a camera lens, sort of. When you think of
that. Okay. I get that. Yeah. That's kind of, I mean, it's like Jean Jacket is the representation of the spectacle. Yeah. And it's funny because like the whole movie is criticizing people going out and trying to capture the spectacle. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Jordan Peele, when he's talking about the movie, he was like, yeah, I just wanted to make a movie that was all about spectacle. And I wanted to make a spectacle that people would have to see in theaters. So he's a hypocrite to himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan, grow up. No, Jordan, I love your movies. Thank you. Please hire me.
We all want to get hired by Jordan Peele, man. He's going places.
Yeah, he's on the rise. One Oscar is not enough for this man. He must win more.
He got a shout out from Steven Spielberg, I think, during an interview. He's like, someone asked him who like your favorite film director right now, and he like name dropped Jordan Peele. He's like, I wouldn't say he's like the best director, but he's like one you want to keep an eye out on. I was like, holy shit, blessed by Steven Spielberg. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to throw in there, Juan?
No, not really. I mean,
no.
Other than people who have listened to the podcast, again, I hope that you guys have seen the movie and even try to rewatch it, just because I think that it deserves more than one rewatch to kind of like really kind of notice everything. And even to this day, I think there's still people picking up small things that are just like, oh shit, this adds another piece of conversation to the story it wants to say, or like the themes it wants to say. But it's a fun time, man. I can't wait for this movie to come back in IMAX because that presentation is amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's like a scene where they're starting to do the plan and has one of the best fucking needle drops in any fucking movie. They start playing Exuma by Exuma, if you guys haven't heard that song before, but it's really good. But it's like the frame is basically just like a widescreen presentation, but when it goes through the window and goes outside, it just goes full blown IMAX. It's good. If you guys if that ever comes back in a re-release and you guys ever want to see it on the big screen again, like, or have not seen it on the big screen, do it because it's really good.
Well, Jordan Peele has stated that he might not be done with the world of Nope. He might one day come back for a sequel. He said he's got some ideas kicking around in his head, but I don't think we're getting a sequel anytime soon. One other thing I'll drop in here before we close this out. Some people have theorized that the movie Nope is not just a saying of OJ in the movie, but Nope might stand for not of planet Earth. Bit of deeper meaning there. So check out Jordan Peele's exciting newest film from 2022, Not of Planet Earth. All right, Juan. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. This was a lot of fun, this conversation, and excited to get you back again for a second time. And maybe if there's another spooky movie, we'll have you back again because I know you're a big horror movie.
Oh hell yeah, man! We'll be excited to come back. This was great. Love talking about this movie, and yeah, great as always. Thanks for having me.
Anything you want to promote or where people can follow you?
I guess you guys can follow me on Instagram, Ramon731. Other than that, that's really, I'm old. I don't use any other social media account really. That's why I'll just post a lot of movie appreciations and music appreciation, and I'll probably talk about come after this conversation. I'll probably post something about it. That's all I post. But yeah, other than that, go rewatch this movie. And even if you haven't seen it and you've listened to this podcast right now, why did you do that? But also still go watch it if you even have not seen the movie at all.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. This one's a little bit longer, but we've been on hiatus for a little bit. Got to give you a little bit of a treat to jump back into this. I want to thank Elias for our logo. If you want to reach out to the show, you can email at cinemonkey@gmail.com and at cinemonkeypod@gmail.com. You can follow at Cinemonkey on Instagram. I'm at Mike DePalmtree on Instagram. If you are listening, please leave a 5-star review on your podcatcher of choice. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, 5 stars, the whole deal. It helps with engagement. And tell your friends about the show. Juan, how should we close out the show today?
How should we? I don't know. Oh, if you guys, speaking of monkeys, if you guys want more monkey content and physically want to do it right now because of the spooky season, go to Halloween Horror Nights. There's a maze called Dead Exposure that literally has one of these best performance actors, which is a giant gorilla guy with like an exposed head and brain with several chimps lying around. Very accurate for the spooky season. Think about it here for podcast. I wish if you had checked it out, we could just have like one episode for this one maze.
for Horror Nights, yeah.
This one maze.
Well,
you want more monkey Halloween, go to that one.
Find a monkey, see a monkey. All right. Bye.